So let us get started. Cool. So today we're doing things a little bit differently than we did yesterday. Hopefully everybody had a chance to watch the video that Christian posted about ideation and sketching. And so we wanted to do that so that we could spend most of class today just hands-on workshop style, doing some sketching, doing some crazy eights exercise, which we'll talk about soon. But first, I just wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to watch the video and go over a few of the concepts. So I just wanted to open up a little bit of a discussion about this for the first few minutes of class. So today we're talking about ideation, but specifically we're going to be focused on sketching, which is how we visualize all of these ideas that we're generating. So it's sort of the natural progression from what we were talking about yesterday when it comes to brainstorming and how that's going to be connected to UX and UI. So can anybody tell me kind of at a high level what the purpose of ideation is? Like if we just have to pick one thing, what would be most important?
Creativity.
Creativity, yeah, for sure. Creativity, and why is that? So can someone tell us why creativity is important in ideation?
Maybe to help you branch out, think a bit outside of the box.
I like the word branch out. So we're trying to expand our possibilities here, right? We're talking about divergent, convergent, divergent, starting with the problem, starting with one point, and we want to branch out and expand our possibilities. So ideation is all about generating ideas, and it's right there in the word. And one really important thing is that during the ideation phase, you want to avoid judging your ideas or assessing them. You don't want to, so to speak, chop down the tree before it grows. You want to see where it goes, and you want to see where different branches are going to take you. What are some of the tools that we can use in the ideation process? Like these could be physical tools, these could be digital tools.
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper, yeah. So that is a favorite. As many digital tools as are released, all the hard work people are putting into those. Sometimes pen and paper is just the best option, the fastest way to get stuff from your brain into the world. What else?
Post-its.
Post-its, yeah. So yesterday we were working with sort of digital post-its. Maybe some of you worked with some physical post-its as well when we were talking about UX workshops and brainstorm activities. Also, if anyone doesn't know the history of the Post-it note, it's really, really interesting, but we can talk about that another time. I encourage you to look it up. It's a cool story. But it could be any kinds of like craft supplies. For me, brainstorming sessions always make me feel a little bit like I'm back in kindergarten in like the best way possible. Almost like you're playing with blocks, you're making things out of pipe cleaners, you're gluing stuff together, you're making collages. You get to go back to being a kid again because kids don't really limit themselves in the way that they think. They're full of ideas, and to me, when you're in a really good brainstorm flow, you kind of get that feeling like you're back in school, you're back in kindergarten or elementary school, and it's kind of fun. So we don't really get to do that or get paid to do that in most instances. So that's pretty cool. And then when do we ideate in the design process?
You can do it anytime, right?
Yep, you can definitely do it anytime. And it can be used to achieve different results at different parts of the design cycle. But sometimes some parts of the cycle are more effective than others. So, for example, we talked about divergent thinking as emerging from a point. So it's really important to have everybody on the same page about what that starting point is. And in most cases, that starting point is a problem that you're trying to solve. And it's important to have that problem defined. And in order to have that problem well defined, you want to have already done your background research. Because if you're ideating around the wrong problem, then that's not super useful. So ideation is most useful after you've done your user research and you've defined the problem well. But like Serena said, it can be applied at any part of the design process, whether it's a brand new product or whether you're just updating a feature, or even like when you're trying to define the problem or understand it better, and the outcomes of your project. Ideation can be really useful as well. Awesome. So sketching at a really high level, it's just a communication tool for being able to record all of the ideas that we're coming up with during the ideation process. One thing that's really important when sketching is you don't want to throw away any of your work, because like as we've gone over a few times now already, sometimes ideas that don't seem promising can lead to ones that are. And a lot of the time when you're making a case to other stakeholders about certain decisions that you're making, they want to know what other alternatives you've considered. So it's useful to be able to pull out a sketch and say like, yeah, we thought about this direction, but this is why we decided to go with this one instead. So sketches are really good because they make all of these abstract thoughts in your head concrete and kind of force you to do that. Self-censoring, don't think. So today we're going to talk about the Crazy 8 exercise, which is a way to force yourself not to self-censor. We'll get into that a little bit more, but at its core, we want to be able to generate as many ideas as possible without stopping ourselves. We want to not be ashamed of our ideas, and at the same time, when you're brainstorming in a group, you have to come up with ways to overcome certain social hierarchies and pressure from the other people in the group, because it can be easy to censor yourself, especially when you're working with other people or maybe even other people who are higher up in the company hierarchy. There's a pressure to not want to come up with any stupid ideas. There are no stupid ideas in brainstorming, but it's something that needs to be considered throughout that process. All right, so before we move on to what a Crazy 8's exercise is, does anybody have any questions about any of this or about the video? All right, and as always, I do have Slido open in case anybody wants to ask any anonymous questions. I'll see them pop up. All right, so Crazy 8s. So the Crazy 8s exercise is meant to be conducted early in the product design lifecycle. It's basically a way of exploring a lot of different concepts rapidly. So yesterday we talked about different ways to get ourselves out of the rut, thinking in just one direction. We talked about mashups, and hopefully some of you got to conduct those yesterday. I talked about it being stuck and then thinking of a random concept. Like I think the example that I came up with was octopus when we were talking about Flutter, and being able to just get out of the confines of the way that you're thinking. Crazy 8s is a really good way to do this, to generate a lot of ideas at the beginning of the life cycle. And what it is again, it's sort of like something that you might have done in kindergarten, or like a game that you might play with your family, like one of those collaborative drawing games. This might sound kind of familiar. So you're going to choose any design medium. Could be paper, could be something like InVision Freehand, and you're going to need a timer. So if you're using paper, you want to fold the paper into 8 distinct squares. So I know Kyla requested that folks bring paper and pencil to class today. So hopefully you're able to find paper and pencil. If you do, this is a good opportunity to just fold it over itself, then fold it over itself again. You should end up with 8 squares. And then you're going to set the timer for 5 to 8 minutes. So either giving yourself 40 seconds per square or 1 minute per square. And you're going to be really strict on the time and just give yourself 40 seconds to 1 minute to draw a unique design idea in each square. So it should be revolving around some design problem. So like I need to design a landing page for my online soccer store. And then give myself 8 minutes to come up with 8 distinct approaches.
So we each choose like a random project in our head?
So that was just an example, but for the in-class exercise, we're going to be using a specific example.
Okay. Sorry.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, does anybody have any questions about the structure? Cool. So this is super useful. I actually only learned about the Crazy Eights exercise through teaching it through Lambda School. It's something I wish I had known about earlier, but I was able to use it a couple of weeks ago at the company where I work. We're trying to approach we were creating a new free tier of a platform for the business where I do consulting, and we had sort of only considered maybe two different options, but I introduced this exercise with the other designer at the company, and we did it, and we came up with 16 different options, and there were a lot of options that didn't make any sense or were just kind of uh, not really useful to us. But it was the eighth option that I came up with that actually ended up being our favorite. So sometimes you just have to really force yourself to think outside the box. Think like, okay, what if this was what if this was a game, or what if this was like a wizard flow or something. So it makes you think outside of the box because you really can't. You really aren't meant to stop and consider what you're doing. It's okay if what you come up with doesn't make any sense. You're just trying to get more different ideas out of your head. So what I'm going to do now, and would love to have you all follow along with me and do it on your own at the same time, is I'm just going to do a Crazy Eights exercise in Envision freehand. And I personally prefer paper. I'm not the slickest with Envision freehand, so I might have to do a little bit of a little bit of undoing here if I don't do the right thing. But generally, you're not supposed to lift your paper, not supposed to erase. I just wanted to be able to share my screen with you while I do this. So the challenge here is to design the landing page for an app that helps you find the perfect pet.
App that helps you find
The perfect pet.
pen?
Pet. P-E-T.
Pet. Pet. Okay, sorry.
Pet. Yeah, so it's like kind of like a pet finder app. And we want to design the home screen, design 8 different iterations of the home screen for this app.
Okay.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set so let's just do 40 seconds, or yeah, let's do 40 seconds per square. So I'm just going to set myself a 40-second timer, and when it goes off, I'll let you guys know. And so you can start by watching me if you want, and then once I've done a couple, you can start doing it on your own, however you want to split your focus. But I'm just going to kind of talk through what I'm doing as I go, what I'm thinking. All right? Any questions?
No.
All right, cool. All right, so helping people find the perfect pet. Start. Okay, so my first thought is a Tinder-like swipe interface. So we're gonna make like a card. Oops. We're gonna make a card here, and it's gonna be like a picture of the pet. I'm gonna drop in pet name, age. See, this is very rough, and it's meant to be that way, but not that rough. I'm not the smoothest with this tool, like I said. Okay, yeah, so that's that. First one done. So Tinder-like interface. All right, next. Okay, my next thought is to do like a form that asks you a bunch of questions about what you're looking for in a pet. It's kind of like a survey. Oh, it's out of time. So I'm a little bit faster sketching in Vision freehand. Okay, next one, no pauses. Next thing I think of is like a wizard. So it's gonna ask you to select a type of pet. and it's going to be like a drop down here, and then it's going to ask you where you live. Oops. All right. Cool. Next one. It's just going to show you a list of, it's just going to show you a feed of pets. And in the background, it's going to have an image. Very beautiful. Sketching is all about getting comfortable with creating ugly things. So in this one, it doesn't take any user input. It just starts showing you a bunch of pets. All right. Next. This one, maybe it's a more compact view. So it's just like picture. And then you can click into that for more info about the pet. All right. Next up, gotta force myself to do something. Okay, what if it's a game? Okay, so this is a it's like it like walks you through a journey. It's like a choose your adventure game. Okay, so I kind of like that. So I'm gonna, oops, starting the next timer. I kind of like that. So I'm gonna see where I can go with. Let's introduce why they're doing it. Oh, I don't think this is going to go anywhere, but that's okay. I'm going to introduce the concept of like control buttons here. Okay, last one. Starting timer. And okay, let's maybe search. Search pets, and I'm actually going to grab this from my other one because this could be like the results. And area. Okay, that's it. So we have 8 different options for ways that we could treat the homepage of this app to help us find the perfect pet. What did you guys notice about this process? Anything stand out?
It's a lot harder than I thought.
It's pretty hard to force yourself to come up with 8 different ideas, and 40 seconds is very short. I think a minute is a little bit better, but I didn't want to take up too much of our class doing this because I want to let you focus on yours. What were some of the challenges?
to keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
Run out of ideas. 'Cause
yeah.
by the fourth like slide, I'm like, what else is left? I can't think of anything else.
What did you come up with any methods for forcing yourself to come up with more ideas?
No, just keep going, I guess. Like even if it looks silly or unfinished, just keep moving, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Like I think I came up with this one here, find the perfect pet by taking this pet adventure. That was basically the same as the previous one.
Hmm.
I knew I wanted to do something with that choose your own adventure idea, but didn't get any further with this one. So this one was basically useless, but that's okay because the next one I came up.
Yeah, switching gears was hard, especially like the first one I started drawing like a little like illustration of a dog and then a illustration of a cat, and you were like, I was like starting on the cat's face, and you were like, okay, on to the next thing, and I was like,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. But then if you like that direction, then you can build it. You can
Yeah.
take it a little bit further in the next one. So they can build off of each other. If you like a direction, or if you don't, then you can try something totally different.
I thought about even like a digital pet Tamagotchi type game thing. So
Awesome.
if you can keep them alive, you can adopt a dog or a cat.
And so it's a pet owner's test. That's awesome. So did you come up with that idea early or later on in your process?
That was my 6-1.
6-1, right? So you wouldn't have come up with that if you had just gone with if you had just explored a couple of ideas, a couple.
Yeah, definitely not.
Did anyone else find that it was later on in the process when you thought you were out of ideas that you came up with something kind of cool and original?
Yeah, I got like a compare pets chart. You know, like how if you're in Best Buy and you're comparing your
Yeah,
tablet, just kind of compare your pets.
yeah, that's awesome.
Responsibility and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and that's sort of like a mashup too. You combine two non-obvious experiences, getting a pet and going to Best Buy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did notice that I was judging my
Mm.
my layouts
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah, it's really hard not to do that. But one of the good things about the Crazy Eights example is even if you are judging a little bit, you have to keep moving because you only have a minute, and then if the minute's over, then you move on.
Yes.
Yeah. So it forces you to spend that discrete amount of time with that, even if you don't think it's going to be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to stick with it for a minute, and then if you didn't like that direction, you can do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone else come up with any really original ideas that were kind of that you might not have thought of if you hadn't been forcing yourself to come up with more?
I thought of a quiz concept where you kind of go through and see like which pet is a fit for me. So I didn't know how to incorporate that into a landing page, but I like randomly just went off on that tangent, and I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So even if you can't necessarily visualize the UI, but you come up with this idea, you could even just write in text, this is a quiz that helps you find the perfect pet.
Yeah.
That's kind of the nature of sketching. It could even just be like a note that you jot down, but at least you came up with that idea and you recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
I also,
I'm sorry, I was gonna say I thought of like sort of a personality quiz type thing too, and initially it was like by animal breed, but then it was like more by species, and then it got down to like just animal like personality quiz by like the personality of the pet itself. Like you could yeah, all animals are different.
So maybe it's not the species that matters as much as the individual animal. So like your personality might fit well with like a really chill lizard or a very old gentle dog. Yeah.
I like chill lizards. They're awesome.
Yeah. Lizards are usually pretty chill.
You guys thought that it was a pound, I think, and they started assigning the dogs different Hogwarts houses. So, like,
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
really cute. And they would like take little pictures of them with like the different Hogwarts memorabilia. Really
That's
cute.
very yeah. but yeah, so this is a really good way to come up with some pretty original ideas. I don't, for me, this is like this really leads to some breakthroughs sometimes when it comes to thinking outside of the box, just because you don't have a choice. Like, I've got to come up with something else. And sometimes just think of a random concept like, okay, what if this was a game, or what if this was a quiz, or Harry Potter, and then see what you can come up with, and maybe that leads you in an interesting direction. So maybe even if it's not Harry Potter houses, maybe that leads you toward just the general idea of like making the pets into kind of like really like making them into some sort of character that that lets people know what their personality's like. Cool. And any other takeaways before we move on to doing some of our in-class assignment or in-class?
I mean, my mind is kind of wandering around the digital pet one.
Oh yeah.
You could do something like before you adopt, geolocate, so you're actually walking the dog, your phone.
Yeah, it's like simulating being the owner before you even meet the pet.
And if you can't do that, you shouldn't adopt.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't remember what show it was, but somebody had to take care of an egg before they could, or like to prove that they would be a good parent. Maybe it was Family Guy or something like that. But yeah, so did everybody use pen and paper, or did anybody use a digital tool?
Paper.
Okay, cool, yeah. So I don't know how much you guys were watching me versus doing it on your own. I was struggling at some times with InVision app. I feel like I would have been able to get more out on pen and paper, but it is kind of cool. I like how the results end up looking like kind of organic, but also you also have you can duplicate elements, which is kind of nice. But so for your assignment today, you can either do pen and paper, or you can experiment with InVision freehand. And if you're interested in InVision freehand and haven't tried it yet, there's a really good walkthrough that teaches you how to use the tools. So I recommend checking that out if you're interested. And what's kind of nice is this translates really well into creating InVision flows. You can just take screenshots of these rather than having to take pictures of a physical sketch. But yeah, cool. So let's move on now, and we'll put this into action. So first, I'll talk quickly about how Crazy Eights and ideation in general can fit into the rapid iteration cycle, which is what we're going to be going through for the in-class challenge. So the rapid iteration cycle is basically just a way of coming up with ideas and then quickly testing and refining them to get to a better solution. So it involves first creating an initial interface design. It could be a rough sketch, or it could be a lo-fi wireframe. And that's actually preferable early in the process. You don't want it to be high fidelity, because high fidelity can be distracting to people. They start getting focused on colors and styles when really you're just trying to learn about the workflows and whether those make sense. The other thing is obviously sketching and lo-fi wireframes are quicker to produce and easier to iterate on. So we want this to be rough. That's first step, is to create the designs. Second is to present the design to real or potential users of the final product. So you want to get it in their hands early and often. And then you want to watch them use it and note the problems that they encounter during the testing period. So one common way to do this is to ask them to try to accomplish different tasks using the prototype. So I could hand somebody my completed pet finder app and tell them, okay, I want you to find the perfect pet for you, or I want you to adopt a dog, and then just watch how they interact with the app and look for points of friction, points of confusion. And then I would do the next round. So I would refine the interface to account for the problems, and then I would repeat the process. And I would just keep repeating that process until I got the design to a point where I felt like it was making sense to all of the users. And only then would I move into higher fidelity mockups.
I have a quick question. Where do you find those people to do this?
So it definitely depends. So it depends on the resources that you have access to at your company. So if you're working at a big company like Google, I have a friend who does user research there, and she was telling me they have this crazy database of people who have signed up to be part of research studies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so sometimes they'll come into the office, sometimes you'll do it remotely, sometimes they even go to their houses to watch them use the products within the context of their own home because they want it to be as close as possible to the real world context. So if you're a big company, they'll already probably have access to a lot of people who will do user testing and they'll have them all organized demographically and by different customer segments so that you can find the right people to test whatever product you're trying to test. I've had more experience at small startups, so it's been a lot of reaching out to friendly customers. If we had an existing product with customers, reaching out to customers that we're comfortable with and that represent the segment of our customers we're trying to test with. And then honestly, for a lot of just usability testing, like does this flow make sense to a human? We'll just test internally with somebody on the team who's not directly working on the project, or somebody, or even just a friend. Sometimes you just need a person to make sure that it makes sense. But it's always ideal if that person is as close as possible to a real or potential user.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. And then there are also services like usertesting.com that will give you access to a pool of user testers who are paid to test products and provide feedback. So you can submit an InVision prototype, and then somebody from there, and you can also define what characteristics you want the testers to have, like demographically. And they have a bunch of vetted user testers who will go through the flow and record themselves doing it and talk through their thought process. And so that's also a really good resource.
That's great.
Cool. So basically what we're going to do today is go through this whole rapid iteration cycle as our in-class challenge. So you're all going to get paired up with one other person, and the challenge is going to be to redesign the gift-giving experience for your partner. So with that specific person's needs in mind. So it's going to be like an 8-part in-class challenge. So I'm going to be putting you in breakout rooms with one other person, and then you're going to go through each of these steps together. So, and I'll time you, and I'll put you in the breakout rooms and then pull you out and tell you about the next step. And we'll be doing this for the remainder of class and for most of the remainder of class, and then we'll just have a little bit of discussion with whatever time we have left. So for the first step, I'm going to pair you up with one other person. There might be a group of 2 people. Would any of our, if we do have an odd number of people, which I think we do, would any of our TLs be interested in being part of this exercise?
Yeah, I'll participate.
Okay, that would be awesome. I really appreciate that, Gabe. We'll see how the numbers work out, but yesterday we had an odd number, so that could be great. Cool. So for the first step, all you're going to do is spend 5 minutes each interviewing your partner about the last time that they gave a gift. So we're specifically thinking about giving gifts, not receiving them here. And just try to start by learning about their experience and what happened. So this is more about the what. For the next step, we're going to focus more on the why and try to learn more about their pain points and their motivations. But for now, just ask them to tell you a story about the last time they received a gift, what their search process was, how they decided what to buy, what giving the gift to the person was like, and questions like that. Any questions? Cool. And if I could actually enlist Gabe, I think you might be in a group. Kyla, if I could possibly enlist you to post screenshots of each of these challenges in Slack, just so that I can show the timer on my screen, that would be awesome. Are you there, Kyla?
Yes, I'm getting it.
Okay, cool. That would be super helpful if you would just post each one of these as I'm explaining it. Then we'll be more efficient. I hear that screenshot sound. Okay, great. Cool. So I'm going to put everyone in breakout rooms. I'll set my 5-minute timer, so I'll just broadcast a message when it's time to switch. And then when we're done with this step of the exercise, I'll pull everyone out of the breakout rooms, and then we'll talk about the next step. Okay, so just give me a second while I set these up. All right, Gabe, so it looks like you are in one of the groups. Thanks for volunteering. Okay, so I'm going to put you in the rooms, and I'll set a 5-minute timer for the first person to start their interview. I'll set 6 minutes just so you have a minute to look at the challenge and get oriented, and then I'll broadcast when it's time to switch. So I'll just say switch, okay? All right, let's go. Hey, Ash.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back. How are you?
All right, driving. There's a lot of traffic. I have to take my kids to school, but yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
Mission accomplished.
Almost. They start school in like 20 minutes. So yeah, just trying to get there. There's a lot of people on the road. Yeah.
Cool.
This is a really fun exercise, actually. We did this with my cohort, and we came up with like a crazy app by the end of it. It was so cool, and like everybody was like, "We could make this a hackathon." Cool.
So did you all come together? Did you all come together after the exercise and try to consolidate everyone's ideas?
Well, the teacher they were like, "Does anybody want to share like one like that or whatever?" And so nobody really wanted to share, but then we were like, "We want to share," and then we shared the one that we came up with, like me and my group, or me and my buddy, and it was like a full blown like it could be like an app. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, "I'm totally down to participate in this if we make this like a real thing." It was so cool. But yeah, it was a fun experience.
Oh, someone just commented no one joined my breakout room. Looks like Kelsey. Oops. Huh. I wonder if somebody dropped out. I'm going to just drop into Kelsey's room for a second.
I mute myself just in case. How's the morning, Kyla? How's it going? I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For what? Yeah, so yeah, I was where'd Ash go? She's still here?
I'm right here.
Looks like Vivian is having connection problems.
I'm still here though.
Okay. You disappeared from my screen. I don't know why.
For the next part of the challenge, and we share my screen again. For the next part of our challenge, we're going to dig deeper. So you sort of got an overview, hopefully, of, oh, sorry, I didn't realize my video was on. Hopefully you got an overview and some insight into their last gift giving process. Now you want to dig for stories and feelings and emotions and understand why. Look for pain points, look for insights into how it could be improved. If you haven't yet, talk to them about why they decided to choose the gift that they did based on the person, what factors they considered. Look for points of friction, like what parts of the process were challenging, and you can also generalize a little bit, not just about this one specific instance, but in general, what issues they have when trying to decide what gift to give people, or yeah, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so just dig deeper and specifically start thinking about what insights you can take away that are things that you might be able to address. Does anyone have any questions about the first part or the second part? Does anyone feel like they already covered this in the first part and doesn't know what to ask about?
Yes.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So okay. So how do we want to approach this? So really try to focus on looking for the problems. If you got the story this time, try to look for ways that for points of friction. What stressed them, what were points of anxiety potentially, and then also think about the entire process. So not just searching for the gift, but what was it like when they gave the gift? How did the person react? What was the context in which they gave the gift? What was the context in which they were searching for the gift? And think about all the different touch points. Maybe ask them about where they searched for the gift if you haven't yet, like what their process was. This is just.
I have all that too.
Sorry?
I kind of have all of that too.
You've done all that? Okay. So maybe does anybody feel like they do need the 5 minutes? Maybe we can turn this to 3 minutes.
Maybe less time because we didn't talk about the whys specifically. We were waiting for the next part, so we kind of have to stop there.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, let's keep it to 5 minutes. Just see if you can come up with more questions. Kind of like Crazy Eights. Dig a little bit deeper. See what direction you could take it in, and you can also feel free to expand it, not just to that one gift giving experience, but in general. What their search process is like when they start thinking about a gift. Do they start with the person, thinking about what they like? Do they start with like a platform, seeing like what the cool seasonal gifts are? Really just try to understand, get as wide and deep an understanding of the process as you can. Okay, so we'll stick with 5 minutes and put everybody back in the breakout rooms. And Kyle, if you wouldn't mind just posting a screenshot of this into Slack.
Already done.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So recreate. No, breakout rooms are always a little finicky. And Kyle, I'm going to put you in with Kelsey.
I reached out to Vivian. I told her I would pair with her.
Hey again. Okay, so let's see.